This subject for our daily 10-minute drawing practice is a great one for such a thing. It's the Marienkirche in Berlin. It was basically completely undamaged at the end of the war, despite the devastation around it. So it's also very old. So I'm starting with this light yellowish section and observing that there are actually some divisions in it as well, where there are some white lines that help us just see proportions and angles a little bit better. So I'm drawing this larger than actual size of the reference because I just felt it was a little bit too small to do the detail. But even so, the detail is very gestural in this, particularly when I get to the upper part of the spire. I'm really just trying to draw the shadows and through that negative space create the actual shape of the architecture. So at this point, going a little bit slowly because this section is going to be what I measure off. So again, checking what's the width of this section in relation to the width of the side that's more front on, and just hinting at the architecture that we see almost side on. Again, we're really just trying to at least create the effect of the shadows that are there. Now, there is a section that comes out here and I haven't made that angle large enough, so I just increase it slightly, and that's okay because I'm able to hide that line with this architectural detailing that we have just on the right hand side, fortunately for me. And so aware that these horizontal lines become closer and closer to being horizontal as they come down the church. Now I'm putting this lamppost in because I want to give a sense of the streetscape with this drawing, and I therefore need to reserve the space, and I also get to do a dark tree behind. So I find where we have poles that go in front of trees a really effective way of getting a bit of visual impact in our drawing, because the pole stands out in stark relief, in value contrast. But it does mean we need to take a little bit more care, both to make sure the pole is straight and to be careful then with our hatching. Now you might notice that as I hatch this, I'm actually correcting the pole slightly. It wasn't quite as straight when I drew it, but I didn't have to worry about correcting it with any lines because I knew I could correct it when I did the darker shading. So there are those lights. It's important that we try and draw everything to the same scale, that we don't do things such as street lights too large or too small for where they are. And now I go up into the very patinaed copper work of the spire. So one of the most important things about spires is proportions. We don't want them too fat, too thin. We don't want them too high. We want to keep them looking right in the same proportions as the rest of the church. Not quite as easy when we're drawing it larger. So just capturing this detail here. It was a glorious summer's day. Temperatures got just over 30 degrees, and we walked around all day in the sun, getting very hot. And we learnt that even in summer, there's almost no public building that's air conditioned in Berlin. I guess they don't have these really hot days that often. So now coming to perhaps the slightly more complicated part of the spire, but I was very determined to not try and draw the detail, but to create the effect through the space. So pay attention and see exactly how I do that. And look, if you're finding this interesting and even helpful, then please, why not help me out and hit the like button right now. And if you're finding this ongoing series helpful and you'd like me to keep making more, then please let me know in the comments. They're fun to make, but I want to make sure that they're being put to use by people. So please let me know in the comment. And I'd love to particularly hear if you think that doing this is actually improving your drawing. The strategy of doing less but much more often, whether you can start to see the payoff in that for what you do. And there we have the spire. So now we start to work on the details that we have lower down. Where buildings hit the road, particularly in cities such as this scene, it's often a weak point in drawings. And I think it's partly because we have to juggle lots of factors at once. It can be tempting to put lines in, especially straight horizontal lines, prematurely, or instead of the lines we should actually put, the marks we should make. You know, we very rarely see a straight line at the bottom of a building. So we need to resist the urge to do that, even though conceptually in some way we know that's what's happening or it might be happening. It's very rarely what we really see. So we need to draw the effect of what we're seeing. And for me, this bus and car, I wanted to start to include the traffic that we were having here because, well, I don't really know what the base of the building looks like anyway. And while I don't have time to even create the effect of all of the detail at street level, I want to suggest some of it. And if I can practice doing this here now, when I am doing location sketching and there is a bus or a truck of some sort or cars that are passing, then I've had practice at drawing them at different angles doing these 10-minute practice sessions. And that can help me to create something from my imagination, as I will need to do. Or one thing I sometimes like to do if I'm trying to draw a car on location or a bus or truck is I start to draw something when it's pulled up at lights or stopped in traffic, and then I try and put enough marks just to indicate where it's going to end, and then I fill in the rest after it's gone. We've now switched to time and a half, or about to switch to time and a half actually. That happens now while I do this tree here and the foliage. There's a fair bit of darkness that I want to create. This tree is very close to us, and so I do want it to be quite dark, but it is still a compromise rendering of it. But the actual church is fairly light in terms of value. It's really just the effect of the lines where they're close together that creates perhaps the appearance of a bit of darkness somewhere, but generally it's all paper. So this darkness, I think, is compositionally quite important. Now you'll notice that while I'm not drawing this tree exactly, I'm doing my best to use the sort of silhouette and branching and leaf structure and the way the leaves hang as I see them on the reference. So I'm adopting and adapting. I'm not being precise, but I still want this tree that I'm drawing to look like it's the same sort of tree in the same sort of place with the same sort of light effect as the one in my reference. And I find that's a really helpful way to draw trees. And so we've gone back to real time while I finish this tree on the other side, which I think is also important as balance to the one on the upper left section. So this really did took me only about 7 or 8 minutes to draw the actual church, and then a couple of minutes over the 10 minutes, maybe even just a minute and a half over the 10 minutes, completing the tree and doing the final streetscape sections. And again, this I think is a pretty useful technique and strategy for drawing if we're on location. We just need a pen in one hand and some paper being balanced on our knees or held up even, and we can do this in 10 minutes and have a great little memory of a moment in the sun in Berlin or wherever we are and whatever the weather's like from that. What a great thing to be able to do. Looking forward to being in Berlin again and to have another go at this. And then I just decide to make a few of the lines a little stronger to again align with the effect in our reference. And I decide to add some lines to indicate both the colour, the darker colour of the roof, but also the lines of tiles that have been applied. And I think again this makes the tower stand out a little bit more, the front of the tower stand out a little bit more. And I think that's about it coming up. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Look, I hope you're having a go with these 10-minute drawing exercises, or however long it takes you. It's a great way to improve our drawing. It's probably far more effective, and it's far more effective than drawing for a long period of time infrequently. We're far more able to see mistakes and to work on those mistakes and to improve and push through those mistakes or even just weaknesses. And of course, I'll post this photo on my channel community page if you want to have a go at drawing the Marienkirche in Berlin in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Really, it's the regularity that's the important thing rather than the speed. But whatever time frame lets you do it frequently would be a great one. But look, whatever you draw, however long it takes, however it turns out, make sure you have fun. And I'll see you next video. Bye.